Okay, where did you grow up?
In South Devon. I was born in Plymouth. I guess it was interesting. I mean, I didn't have anything to compare it with. I realised that because it was during the war, most of it, I was born January the 2nd, 1935, which means that by the time the war started, I was already a young naughty boy. What I did have was Dartmoor, which I was allowed to wander on alone, and which was a great privilege. And I think there were a lot of storytelling and a lot of stories came out of those periods where you were living in this timeless sort of zone. What I did live in was a world of storytellers. My mother was the storyteller. When my father recounted things that had happened to him, especially during the war, when he came back and told us things that had happened, it was like stories. Teachers told stories. Tavistock, where I was brought up, was a very, and still is I guess, very haunted town. I say still is because I guess ghosts don't go away as quickly as that. And ghosts were, in fact, not just ghosts, but all that area of magic was quite important in my life. I lived in a terraced house on the side of a valley, and across the valley in the field the other side was a field with a circle in it. And whenever my mother referred to it, she referred to it as the fairy circle. My mother died at the age of 95, and probably about 3 years before she died, I was thinking about this fairy circle, and I said to her at that point, I said, Mum, you remember that circle in the field opposite when you lived in Tavistock? I said, what actually was that circle? And she said, it was the fairy circle, dear. As simple as that. Elmer came because I drew quite a lot of elephants at that time as jokes and things. I like drawing elephants, they're not all that complicated. At the time, my paintings were very influenced by Paul Klee. They were squared up and in colours, not in the same way as his, I hope, but certainly influenced. Elmer seemed natural, elephant, the alliteration. And after the name came the story, in that case. Sometimes the story comes first before any images at all, like Not Now Bernard was one of those stories that comes in the bath. In that case, you're just the receiver. The stories are already circling in the air, and the story came. So it varies. Elmer is the biggest awareness in that it's really gone through the world, and it's Elmer which pays for not just the bread but the marmalade which goes on it. Mr. Benn is a big success in a cult kind of fashion, but especially in England.
How did Mr. Benn transpire?
Mr. Benn came about not in the form that it ended up. It came about because I wanted to write a story about a red knight. That business of the costume shop and the street and everything came after the original story. In fact, when I went to the publisher with the first book, there was somebody in the publisher's office who says, that's fine, what's he going to try on next? And up to that point I hadn't thought about a sequel. I already had other ideas that I wanted to work on. Mr. Benn obviously was the first of those characters because he went into film. The films were followed by the films of King Rollo, which happened in book and then also went into film, and we started King Rollo Films on the back of that. The idea of Mr. Benn being a live film I find fascinating. And your characters, when you invent them, are a bit like your children. You can protect them to a certain point, you can give them advice, but after that point they have to live their own lives.
Do you ever consider working digitally, or would you consider the old methods are the best?
I don't consider one method as better than another. It's just that I'm I still work with in an old-fashioned kind of way, a paintbrush and paints. And I don't have a computer, I don't have internet, I don't use a portable telephone, I don't wear a watch. But I don't feel I'm missing anything. Those kind of things exist, and there are people who use digital ways of working, which are, and for them that is the way, and they will produce their masterpieces like that, and I will produce my minor pieces in an old-fashioned way.
You've created a CD with some beautiful music. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I guess I didn't really create it. I paid for it. It was Duncan Lamont, who was a dear friend and who wrote the music to Mr. Benn and to King Rollo and most of the other series. He did a concert in which he did a big band version of the music from the film The Balloonist of Mr. Benn. And ever since then, for a long time, I'd been saying, I really think we should do more of that kind of music in big band form. We should do. I said, Duncan, we should do a CD. He wrote these fantastic versions to the Mr. Benn, some of the Mr. Benn music, and played with an 18-piece big band, and it was an absolutely fabulous day. The only thing I could think of at the end of the day is, where can I get the money to do another CD?
I hear you've got an exhibition coming up. Can you tell me where that is and when it is?
Yeah, that's the gallery that I use, which shows originals, and sometimes I have painting exhibitions there, is in Berry Street, 22 Berry Street in St James. It's called the Illustration Cupboard. The shows there are always fantastic anyway, because it's one of the few galleries which specialises in illustration work. And there's an exhibition coming up which opens on the 14th of May and goes on for about 3 weeks, and I guess stuff will still be hanging about afterwards, which is based on 25 years of Elmer with Anderson Press. There are quite a lot of characters out there, some which don't spring to mind at the moment, and when I get home they're going to hit me and say, why didn't you talk about it?
Are you working on any new projects at the moment?
There are always new projects. Every day is another day, and is mostly trying to get out of your head, because a lot of what I do is trying to empty my head, which never seems to work, because as soon as you get rid of a project, it's immediately replaced by another.
Would you ever retire?
No, I've got this far, which is already quite a distance, and I think I'll just have to keep going to the end.